Hi guys, I want to do something a little different today. As you know, I don't just make soap, I do quite a lot of things, and I wanted to show you one of the projects that I've been wanting to work on for a while now. Well, actually since I started doing these doll customizations. I want to make a stand that looks like concrete or pavers. You can see the squares that I've drawn on here. This is just an old plaque I had from my folk art days. It's kind of weird because there's a little lag between me saying things and then them happening on the screen over there, and it's kind of weird because I keep looking at the screen and it's just like freaking me out, so I'm gonna stop looking at the screen. Alright, yeah, so what I want to do is I want to actually grind these out so that they actually have some depth to them. I did one on the back here, so it's probably a little hard to get some shine on there. No, can't do it. But yeah, it's got some depth to it, and I think once I cut these out and sand this back, I'll be able to, you know, give it some really nice coats of grey and some washes and that, and it will look, I can make it look like old gritty concrete. So that's what I'm going to do today. Now I'm using my Dremel tool, which is not a Dremel, it's an Ozito, so it's a rotary tool. I have one of the engraving cutters on it, I think is what they're called. It's the little ball one. I don't think that will, no, I don't think it will. Yeah. No, that's as focused as it's going to get. Ignore my strange ass nails. I'm in the middle of getting this off and redoing them, so yeah. Alright, so let's get stuck in. I won't talk through this. I will do it fast forward, maybe do a voiceover, maybe just do some music, but at the very least we'll stop when we get to the end, or when it gets too noisy, because it's already 8:15 at night. One thing I did forget to mention when I started, before I started doing this, is I'm specifically using the ball because I don't want this to be neat. I want it to look old and weathered, and I don't, yeah, because I'm thinking of using this with maybe as some sort of zombie or monster doll, I don't want it neat. I'm thinking I might add in some cracks in other places as well, instead of just straight lines, or as well as the straight lines. So yeah, so and I'm trying to make the depths vary and the widths as well. So like you can see here, it's kicked out a little bit. That's great. I'm loving that. So this is sort of more the effect that I'm going for, rather than a really neat look. So. Okay. I'm going to give this a good clean up, and then we'll come back and we will base coat it and see what's what. Alright. Okay, so I've been waffling on, and and you can see how much I painted, and the camera wasn't even on. So I don't know if I said, there you go, Deco Art Metallics. You can give these a spotlight. There's a half dozen colours. They are awesome. I have so many ideas for what I want to do with them. I'm just wetting that down a little bit because I just want to get in all of this before the colour that I mixed up runs out, because I didn't mix enough. And this is more just, I just wanted to put a base coat down so I could see what I was working with more than anything else. It was just a little hard to see it with the black and then the cut out bits, and at least this way I can get to sort of have a look at it and where I'm going to go from here. So it also doesn't matter if I get any on this outer gold edge because it's all going to be repainted. So just going to get in there. Paint's getting a little thick. Could be the white, could be the metallics that are drying reasonably fast, who knows. Alright, well I better mix up a little more. Hey, got that autofocus going too, so I'm not in any way trained. Took some art classes when I was a kid, so I'm fairly slap happy with paints, as I just believe if you just get in and give it a go, you never know what will happen. So I don't tend to do things properly. I just do things and they either work or they don't, and then if they don't work I do them differently the next time. So I think you shouldn't be afraid to just get in and have a go. That's kind of my philosophy in life, is just, you know, give it a whirl, see what happens. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Well, the worst that could happen is I will paint this and it will look like shit, and then you know what? I'll throw it in the bin and that'll be the end of it. And then the next time I'll know what I can and can't do, and figure out a way to make it better. So, you know, I mean, it's not like people are going to die if I fuck this up. So, you know, it's just, it is what it is. People are far too afraid of things that need not be feared, I think. You know, I think we get so caught up in the minutiae of life that we forget that it doesn't really matter, you know. Like if I was performing heart surgery, then, you know, I'd want to think that I'd be a little bit more trained in what I'm doing and better at what I'm doing, but I'm just painting a board, for God's sake. But yeah. And as you can see, there's brush strokes everywhere, and I'm not overly worried about that. I'm going to come back in with some sponging anyway. So, but like I said, I wanted to just lay down a base coat just to get everything covered up, just so I could see what was what. I'm going to make sure that this is all filled in. I'm going to make this paint a lot wetter so it soaks in everywhere, and then that way when I do put a wash down it will already have paint over it, won't suck all the paint in. So Yeah, I like it. It's good because it's fairly rough, which is what I was hoping for. Like the surface isn't particularly rough, but the but where I've done the cutting is, which is really good. So I'm liking what I'm seeing. There's a little bit there. It's not quite filled in. Same as in here. Oh, look out! Here comes Socks. He's going to jump up on the table, guaranteed. He'll be in the video. We'll feature Socks in the video. Or not. Oh, hello down there. What you doing? Hello. Me little mate. Aren't ya? What you doing, little silly? Yeah, I like this. It's a bit hard for you guys to see. Let me just get some shine on it. You can actually see all the cutouts now. So yeah, I think this might turn out alright. We've got this nice big chunky bit up in here, and I've opened this up a little bit, although that could probably be deeper. I did want to put some sort of moss and whatnot. Mosses? I don't know. Is mosses the plural of moss? Or is it just moss? Anyway, alright, well, we're going to let that dry. And then we'll come back and we'll start doing some other stuff. Alright, bye. Okay, so I really hate it when people do stuff off camera and come back and say, let's do this, and they've done stuff and you can tell that they've done stuff and it gives you the shits because you don't know how they did it. So I just decided I was going to, while this was still a little bit wet, I'm just going to give it a bit of a tap with some sponge so it doesn't have any brush marks in it. It's lifting a little bit, which is not a problem. We can go back over it again when it's dry and it just, ow, that's my leg. Pretty cat. Yeah, we can go back over it when it's dry. Now all I did was just one of these big sponges and I've just torn a piece off, just like that. Doesn't matter what shape it is, because however you push on it is how it will get in there, so don't stress too much about the shape. The only thing I would suggest is you don't have like that piece that I just ripped off then. I wouldn't use this end or this end where it's perfect. Like, can you tell? See, this end is perfectly straight, whereas I'll probably use this edge, maybe rip that off, or this edge if I wanted to do this edge if I wanted to do a big spot. I'd do it that way, but I wouldn't use these really flat ends that come off the edges of the sponge. So, but yeah, no, I just had this little piece, so I just thought, oh, there's a piece of glitter on there. Seriously. Of course there is. In this house you don't get away from the glitter. Apparently Socks is dying of starvation down here underneath my feet. Because he's head bonking and snuggling and meowing and carrying on. Aren't ya? Oh, yes. But yeah, now, I don't know if you can see, but there we go, give it a shine on there. You can see that there is no brush marks now. It's all sort of textured, so yeah, even though it's taking a bit of the paint off, it doesn't matter. At least we don't have any brush marks. So I'm going to leave this. I'll go and feed the dying cat and we'll come back and we'll do another coat on this and have a play. Alright, bye. Okie dokie, it's still tiny little bit wet, but I'm like massively impatient, so it's just gonna have to do. I am just going to give this a second coat and try and not get any on my jumper. Just try and get this covered as much as I can, more because some of it you can see like the pink of the flowers and that, so I don't really want that showing through. Other than that, the black doesn't matter. The black's kind of good because it gives it a bit of extra texture. Apparently my tongue does not want to work, so... And Socks is back again. Hello, Socks. Hello. Okay. So that looks pretty good, I think. It's not really, I mean, you can sort of see some of the black through it, but that actually works. What you can't see anymore is the flowers, which was a bit of an issue. Now, when I just swipe that through the paint, then I've got a little bit of white here on the corner. I'm not going to worry about that, because if it actually hits, like you see that there's a bit of white there, if I just pat that, it's just going to just mix in with the greys anyway, and we're going to be putting some white and black stippling on here, so it will be fine. I'm noticing there are a couple of spots, just a few, that still have a little tiny bit of the timber showing through. So I've just wet the brush and I'm just running it through what's left of this paint here. And I'm just gonna knock that down into those there. I probably should have my better glasses on because I can't actually see. Oh, the joys of getting old, guys, I swear. It's just dreadful. Everything goes. I need to go to Specsavers. I mean, that's not even a joke. I literally need to go to Specsavers. Glasses are just one of those things I just cannot afford at this point in time. No. So yeah, I'm wearing my ones. Like everything. Pretty sure everything I own is from the Reject Shop. I swear, it's so sad. The Reject Shop in Kmart, pretty much. I think that's pretty much it. I'll just get in, just do all of them. May as well get them done. I'm really liking how this has turned out so far. I'm really happy with this. It looks better than I expected it to look at this point, so that's something. And then I'm going to paint it and stuff it right up. Or not, who knows? I do love all these cracks and whatnot. What I might do actually, it's just a smidge of this. I seem to be really liking this stuff at the moment. See, I'm impatient. I should be waiting and letting this dry, but am I? No, because I'm an idiot. I can't help myself. I like to wreck things. All I did, you see what I did, was just put in a little bit of the metallic, and then it's really, really wet. And I'm just putting it in where these cracks are, and it'll soak it up because it's MDF. It'll soak it in. I'm pretty sure, because I've wet it down so much, and that first coat of paint isn't dry yet to seal it in, so to seal the MDF. So I'm not suggesting you do this, but this is the impatient way of doing things. I can't help it. I'm shocking. I'm watching a new drama at the moment. It's called The Secret Life of My Secretary, and I've got an episode there to watch in like 2 minutes. It'll be finished downloading in about 2 minutes. So, because I can't streaming, so for some reason, just, I don't know, it's kind of jumpy. No matter how fast the connection is, it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. So yeah, I don't stream. Netflix aggravates me. Netflix does it more than anything else. But yeah, this new drama's good. So, and it's got like 32 episodes or something. This is one thing I love about Korean and Japanese dramas is they don't tend to do more than one season of things. Everything's neatly wrapped up for you in one season, and it's just, they're not making a drama just to make a second season. Like, it's just, that aggravates me. I watched You, which I think was on Netflix, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was. And while I enjoyed it, it was definitely a different perspective than what you've ever seen before. It annoyed me that it worked. They made it so that it was meant to have another season. Now, if they had just not done that, I think it would have made it better. But it's just like all American television is all just designed not for your entertainment, but just to make money. Whereas, I suppose the Korean ones are probably just designed to make money too, but it's like, I don't know, they don't rely on multiple seasons to tell a good story. And they're not just like romantic comedies neither. That's mostly what I watch. Romantic dramas, I'm not entirely sure what they're called. They do have comedy, but they have drama as well. You can't have a good romance without drama, jeez. What would the world come to without drama? But yeah, they tend to run for 16 episodes, and they have a beginning, a middle and an end, and that is it. And that is just the be all and end all of everything. So I had forgotten how blue Payne's grey actually is. It's very blue, isn't it? It's been a while since I've painted with real paints. No, because I've been doing the dolls. Mostly I have been using watercolour pencils and soft pastels. No painting really at all. Oh, I guess I have something. Oh no, what's happened? Dickhead. That was silly. See, this is why you should never go over wet paint. It lifted. That was what that was. I thought I had black on my finger. Turns out it wasn't. It was just that it had lifted the paint that was on there off what was underneath. I know, can you guys see? This is sort of just... You're beginning to see the cracks now coming more into relief. I'm going to leave this to dry overnight before I do any stippling over the top, because I don't want it to lift off. So we will come back to this tomorrow. But yeah, it's coming along. My impatience has served me well. For a change. Usually I wreck things and regret them pretty quickly. Now I have a piece of paper here for a reason. When you're sponging, a lot of times if you get too much paint on your sponge, and it's too much, you can just dab it off. So I always have spare bits of paper floating around everywhere, pretty much in every room in the house. And all they are is like, that's a recipe for a soap recipe that I don't use anymore. So I keep them, and then I use the backs because the back has nothing on it, and then I'll use the back to write notes on, or wipe off excess paint, or you know, something, so it just doesn't go to waste. No point throwing out a perfectly good piece of paper until it's been used on both sides. No, I'm not one of these crazy eco warriors, but I don't like wasting paper. I don't know what that's about. It's probably Stephen King's fault. I feel like I'm going to overdo this if I keep going, so I keep going. No, the reason I say Stephen King's fault is because in the Dark Tower series, when Roland comes over, he's astounded by the amount of paper that we waste, because in his world, paper's sort of like a luxury. So he's yeah, no, I don't know why that's out of everything in that book. I'm not entirely sure why that out of everything stuck. But yeah, no, I distinctly remember that he was just so surprised at how wasteful we were, and how precious paper was to him. That just, yeah, it was kind of cool. I have to reread those. It's not like I haven't read them a dozen times already. It's certainly a series that's worth rereading, that's for sure. If you guys like to read and you haven't read the Dark Tower series, you are missing out. I've mentioned this before on my soap videos, but I have trouble remembering things. I don't hold a lot of memories. I think it's got a lot to do with the bipolar, but it could just be me. I don't know. But some things that are very emotional and traumatic and that tend to stick with me. And I know this is going to sound really stupid, although people that read books may possibly understand this, but I still remember when I read the end of the Dark Tower series, and it was one of the most emotional experiences of my life. Because the thing is, I mean, Stephen King took, I think, 20 years to write that series, and most of us who were fans sort of went along for the adventure with him. So we had basically been reading this story and knew these characters for the same amount of time that he did, you know. And that's, if you don't read and you don't get into books, you thinking I'm crazy right now, and that's fine. If you read books, you'll know what I'm talking about. I'm just going back over these. This sponge is still a little bit wet. Just where it's come out, where I've gone over the tops a little bit, just to even it out a smidge. But yeah, when you've invested 20 years in a book series, the characters in the book tend to feel like, see, look at that. That there is impatience. That lifting now, that paint lifting from right there. Yeah. So, but yeah, when you invest 20 years in characters, it's when you lose them, or when things end, it's very traumatic. But I still remember sitting in the back room at the house out at Townsend in I can't remember the street's name. That'd be pushing it. Just sitting there in the sun, just going, what, really? No. I was stunned. Because Stephen King says, because there's the Dark Tower has an end, but then it has another end. And Stephen King ends the book, and then he comes in and he says, well, in writing, not in words, well, words, but not in, oh, you know what I mean. He basically comes in and says, you can stop there, or you can keep reading. It's up to you. And it's like, what do you do? Like, you know, Stephen King's actually come and said, it might not be a good idea for you to keep reading this. You know, maybe you shouldn't. But you do anyway, because you just, how could you not? And yeah, it's like, oh Jesus, I kind of wish I'd listened to him. Because it's just like, yeah. What Roland finds is pretty awful, I guess. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read it, but it's like, if you do decide to read The Dark Tower, then I'm going to suggest that when you get to that end book and Stephen King says don't read anymore, dude, don't read anymore. It will hurt. It will hurt. Trust me, it will hurt. If you although, I mean, you can read all the books now in one go. You don't have to wait 20 years. So imagine character, you know, that sort of getting so close to characters probably wouldn't be like it was if, you know, when you stick with a book for 20 years. I was waffling now, aren't I? I was a waffling. This is the other good thing about sponges, is because they hold so much paint, is you can go back in with like I can't load any more of that colour on this sponge because I do not have any more of this colour. But there's some left in there, so. And I did say I was going to stop, didn't I? Did I stop? No. Am I going to regret it? Probably. Hopefully not. But, you know, I've moved over into the black now, so... Oh, which you guys can't even see. But yes, I've moved over into this black now. I'm making it very, very wet. So... Not that that really matters. I still should not be doing what I'm doing. Don't do this. This is not a tutorial. Do not... This is how not to do things. This is how to wreck shit. That's what this is. This is a guide in how to wreck stuff. Because I have a tendency to go too far. Like these were probably fine about 2 coats ago. And I just keep going and keep going. And it never seems to stop. It's like, really? Just for God's sake, woman, stop. I can hear socks snoring on the floor at my feet, which is really cute. I'm just trying to make this one really dark, which is stupid because then it's just gonna... Yeah, see, look, see, that's wrecked it. Wrecked it, it has. Yes, so I did wipe that on my pants. Right. So all I did was just put a bit of water over that, and then I've come back in with the sponge. That's better. That wrecked it. Alright. So, just in case I actually do come back, I'll leave that. If you leave your sponge face down, where can I put that? I don't know. This camera's mental. Where? There. If you put your sponge face down, it'll stop it from drying out so much, and then you can use it again. But yeah, you can see now, like without the light on it, you can see where all these little dark patches are now. Like this bit's darker here, and then here. See, I can't actually see that, which is actually really cool that you can see it on a camera. And that's good because that kind of looks like grimy spots on there now, and you can also see that in all of the in all the cracks in that now, even with light on them, they really shine. They, you know, you can see that they really stand out. So, but this will be fairly matte. I won't have a lot of shine on it. I'll probably give it a coat of Liquitex matte medium when I'm completely finished, because I don't want it to be shiny. I don't think I will leave the gold edge either. I haven't decided what to do about that. I do, if I was going to do some sort of steampunk, I think I'd leave it this colour, but I may actually, what I might do, because I can't help myself, what I need is a rag. This is me. I just wipe my brush on my pants. I'm just wondering what this metallic would look like. Actually, that might look really nice, actually. I think I said actually twice in one sentence then, didn't I? This is not the brush for this. This brush is pretty shitty, as I keep saying, and yet I keep using it, even though I have like 4,000 brushes in the house. But I think that, I don't know, what do you guys reckon? It might be a little too close. What about the Payne's Grey? It's fairly blue though, like Payne's Grey is quite blue, so I think that might be yucky. I don't like that. Mixed in with the metallic though, it's not that blue. I kind of like that. Anyway, we can experiment with that once the top's finished, because we'll be doing some stippling and whatnot with the sponge. There's no point doing the sides, because as you can see where it was sponged before, there's already grey paint. So yeah. Alright, well that was 20 minutes of me waffling on, and little kitty cat's meowing down here. Apparently he's awake now and not snoring anymore. So alright, well, I'm going to go watch my drama, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Alright, bye. Back again. So, yep, I'll have to fix this chair. So it has occurred to me that I have my paints out. So they're going to dry out. They've probably already begun drying out. So we should probably get this done now instead of later. Like tomorrow, even though it's already 2 o'clock. But what's new? What's new, hey? I'm just going to mix up some grey here. Just probably a little bit lighter than what I was working with before. And then what we're going to do, so get that off of there. I've got my piece of paper here. Now, all I've done, I'm going to do is put some on the sponge, not on my jacket, and then dab it off. And that might possibly be a little bit too light, so I'm going to grab a little bit more black. That's a bit better, I think. The good thing about this is it doesn't really matter, you know, if they're too dark or too light or whatever, because you're going to do multiple layers anyway. So, and as you can see, I've also not mixed the the paint particularly well, because that also will not matter. Just going to dab that off, and then I'm just going to sponge it on. No particular way. I turn the sponge all different ways, just so that I don't have like a perfectly repeating pattern. Turn the piece around so there's no repeats anywhere. The one thing I have noticed with this, using this metallic, is it's really shiny. It's really hard for me to see from this angle because there's so much shine on it. Because you've dabbed off your sponge, there's a lot of paint left on the paper. And I don't want this first coat to be too blotchy, because what you're trying to do here is imitate texture and the way that the light and shadow shows up on that texture. So none of it should be particularly sharp at this point. If you're not sure what you're doing, go and have a look at some photos of concrete on, you know, Google or somewhere, and just see the way that the light falls and doesn't, and yeah, just see how a sponge can imitate that, just, you know. And this is only the first layer as well, so got to remember that. We will do lighter ones and darker ones. I might actually, what I might do whilst I'm here, let's grab a little bit of black. I'm going to make this very wet. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to come back in when that's dry. The next coat that I do will be my wash. Clean off my brush. I'll just have a, I don't know where anything is. I don't know why you can't see anything on this stupid camera. There you go. There. I have a mason jar full of water. Alright. Actually, that's probably a better place for the paint. There we go. So set up for tomorrow, because I really need to go and do some stuff. Actually, I think I'm going to go make some boobs. It sounds weird, doesn't it? Alright, so there you go. So we're getting there. Like, it's hard for you to see. So it's with the sheen. There's a lot of sheen on this now, but that's probably the best angle. You can see we're getting different depths now with the darker and the lighter, and we'll work that up in the next couple of layers. It should look good. Alright, hi, hello, I'm back. Alright, now I apparently sat my sponge in my paint last night, so we won't be using that bit of sponge. I did have another piece, but I don't know where I've put it. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to rip another piece off. Alright, this is the paint that I put out last night. It's still usable, I guess. It hasn't completely set up. So what we're going to do is I'm just got my water here, and I'm just wetting the brush and then just making it the paint really wet. So you can see it's really thin, and I'm just going to keep thinning it out, because we want to do a black wash. You can see how thin that's getting now. And what we're going to do is simply push it down into the gaps and all the little bits and pieces, and then I'm going to get a bit of paper towel and I'm just going to wipe it off, and you can see how different that bit looks now. So I'm just going to keep wetting the brush, dipping it in the paint, going down into these bits, and then wiping it off. And it gives it a grungy sort of old feel when you do this, and it's really simple. I mean, it requires absolutely no skill whatsoever. If it required skill, I probably wouldn't do it. And yeah, just wiping it off. And you'll also notice you're getting differences on here as well, so that's not a bad thing. But yeah, and I just do little bits at a time because I don't want it to dry out at all, because then you can't get it off, and you don't want to leave it like that because that just looks terrible. So yeah, just like that. As you can see, I'm not trying to get too much everywhere else. Just dipping in just a little bit. Just like that. Pretty simple. But it makes a big difference. That's the thing, is it makes so much difference. Now, where haven't we gone? Put in some in here. There's a cracked looking thing going on there. It's here. And the good thing about using paper towel instead of like a tissue or a bit of fabric is paper towel has texture. So if you leave some behind, you'll also leave behind a bit of texture, which is a good thing. Especially with something like this that's very textured. And that's pretty much it, really. May not seem like you've done very much, but you have. Now, one mistake I did make was I left my paintbrush sitting in the water all night, and the you can see the outside of the paintbrush is peeling off. I didn't realise I'd left it in the water. I don't normally do that. But yeah, that was stupid. Don't leave your paintbrushes in your water. Also, it tends to bend your bristles as well. So not a good thing to do. Like I said, I don't have the most expensive brushes, but it doesn't hurt to look after things even if they don't cost you an arm and a leg. Cost really shouldn't factor into things on how you look after them, I don't think, but I'm loving how this is looking at the moment. I don't like that square at all, so I'm just going to just do that, and then I might just get a bit more. This thing is really not deep enough. It's just not taking as much dark colour as I'd like it to. But yeah, I'm pretty stoked with that. I like how it's kind of different in different places. So, like some of them are darker. It's looking really good. I'm really liking this at the moment. You can see, because I've used that metallic, is it's got different sheens depending on how you look at it. One's a Martin sheen, one's a Charlie sheen. Oh, that was a lame joke, wasn't it? Ah, dear. Alright. See, my biggest problem is I have a tendency to overwork things when I should just leave them alone. So, I'm going to leave that alone, and I'm actually going to make sure that I wash my brush. Don't leave it sitting in there. And, yeah, and then we'll come back and we'll do some more, a little bit of paintbrush in there now. Look at that. So, that's very annoying. I'll get that out. Yeah, we'll come back and we'll do some more stippling and see how it ends up. Right. Bye. Well, back again. Now, having looked at this now that it's all nice and dry, I've decided I want to it needs to be darkened a little bit. I feel it's a little too light, so we're going to put on some, oh, here's a cat. We might make up some dark grey. Now I don't want to go black because black's too dark. So, get into my icky paint that's been sitting out all night. Get some water in there. And we'll make it fairly dark. Now this is just black and white. Just lamp black and I don't know, titanium white, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, just basic black and white. Now, because it's so thick, because it was sitting out all night, I'm just gonna move my brush to the side. And I'm going to take my bit of paper. You see my bit of paper? I'm just going to just thin it out. And then we're just going to come in here and start speckling it on. And as you can see on here, I didn't mix the paint. Like, there's still some white, there's still some black in there, and that'll serve us well on here. So when we do put this on with the sponge, it's not all just one colour. So, and don't worry if you think this looks a little dark, because we will come back in with some paler colour straight over the top. And you can see there's a couple of white splotches from in here, which is perfectly fine. Not overly worried about that at all. Yeah, so I mean, already this is looking much better. We need it to be more weathered looking, and you know, more cementy. More cementy. That makes sense, doesn't it? Let's make it more cementy. Alright. So, and as you can see, I've just turned the sponge around in different ways, and I move the piece around. Alright. That's really good. Now what I'm going to do while that's still wet is I'm going to mix up a lighter grey. Now I shouldn't be using these paints, they're dried out a bit, but it doesn't really matter. Alright. There's a lighter grey there. And I'm just going to come in just a few random places, not really all over it. Dab it off and dab it back on again. And if you feel it's a bit too pale, you just go back into where that was a bit darker, go back over the top of it, darken it back down a bit. But you do want a good variety, because you know, cement doesn't all look the same. You will also get different degrees of colour dependent on how hard you press your sponge down. If you just sponge lightly, it won't show up very much like that, see? But if you do it really heavily, no, I was going to show you in the back, but I can't. So yeah, it'll be a lot lighter. So I would give basically pretty much the whole thing like a medium pressure. Now that, my friends, I think looks bloody fantastic. I'm really happy with that. What I might do is, all I did was dip the sponge into the white, and then I've mixed it out on the greys. So there'll be a couple of like extra light speckles, as you can see here. I'm just going to go in and just do a few of those. Not many, just a few little highlights here and there, around the edges a little bit. And that is pretty much it. I like it. There are a couple more things I would like to do. I want to paint the edges, which we'll need to make sure the top is dry. And I also would like to add just a little bit more dark into some of these, which I can actually do now. I will use a smaller brush, just wash that one out, and we'll use, what do we got here? No, I know there's a better brush in here for this. Just have to find it. Right, I'm going to use a little small brush here. There we go, tiny little brush. It's got like a little rounded head on it. Okay, so small brush, I'm going to wet it. I'm going to go back into this black that we wet before to do in these. And I'm going to really water it out. So this is about how thick it is, how wet it is on the brush. It will barely be different. And I'm just going to brush into these cracks really, really lightly. Trying not to get too much on the paint on top, so I don't need to wipe any off, because it's still a little bit wet and it's not quite dark enough for me. So what I'm going to do is just make it just a little bit thicker, so it's not quite as watered down, and then we'll try that and see how that looks. Now, I don't want this to be too in your face, but we want just a little bit more, just to make them just stand out just a little bit. Okay, so I've swapped out to a really thin brush. My kid's out there doing something to his scooter. I'll get back in here and get this finished before he needs me to do something. Okie dokie, ready to paint the edges. I have put out an equal amount of the Deco Art Metallic Black Pearl and some Payne's Grey here. I'm just going to mix them together. I don't know if you're supposed to do this, or you know, whether other people do it or not, but I always find when before I use a brush, I always wet it. If I'm using acrylics, I always just dip it in my water, put it on my hand, sort of squeeze the water, you can see the water pops out, and then just sort of just so it's damp before I start. And I find that if you do it that way, you get less paint up in your ferrule. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Alright, so I'm just going to just mix these and see what it looks like, because I don't really know what I'm going for here. I just don't want that grey. I'll probably want sort of more that grey, but I don't want it to be too blue, and the Payne's Grey is fairly blue, so yeah, that's not bad. I don't mind that colour actually. Alright, so just get it all off the brush, and then we'll give it a paint and see what it looks like. Alright, now that that's painted on, I like it because it's got that nice metallic sheen, but I don't know if it's just, I'm just not sure if it's just a little too blue or not. I don't know. I'll leave it to dry anyway. It's going to need a second coat, and then when it's dry, if I still find it to be a little blue, what I'll do is I'll add just a little bit of black to this mixture, and then we can have a look and see. Okay, it's dry. I actually like the colour, so I'm just going to go with it. Yeah, I think it sort of sets off the top and makes it look more concretey. Alright, so we'll give it a second coat, and then we'll put some moss on. That's it. It's done. We're just going to put some moss on it, and it'll be ready to figure out who's going on there and how I'm going to attach her. Alright, we'll be back for the moss, and then that'll be the end of it. Alright, bye. Hello, I'm back. Alright, we are ready to put some mossy bits on here. I did first want to show you, I found some rocks outside that I thought might look alright. Now these were almost exactly the same colour, but what I did was I used my sponge. I just sort of sponged on top of them. You can see, I don't know if that will focus in, you can see they've got different shades, so I didn't want to make them fully grey, but what I'll do is I'll place these, once I know what's going on here and where I'm going to put it, I'll place these on and glue them down, and yeah, but for now we will just put a little bit of moss on, and that will be finished. Now I have this, I have a big giant bag of this stuff. I'm pretty sure I got this from Spotlight or possibly eBay. If I got it from eBay, it would have come from China, no doubt. Now I don't want a lot, so I'm just going to rip this up fairly small, and I'm going to use my absolute favourite glue of all time, which is this. I love this. Is the quick set version. It's the wood glue, but it sticks to just about everything. I use this to make my yarn wefts for my doll hair. I've glued fabric with this, I have glued plastic, I have glued wood, I have glued pretty much everything. It doesn't work on like really slippery surfaces, but it works on pretty much just about everything else. And it's quick set, and it actually does set fairly quickly. Alright, so we've got a tiny little piece here. I'm just going to figure out where I want them. I sort of want them look like they're growing up out of the cracks, so we might put a little piece there. And this is all I'm going to do, is just basically just sit it on there, hold it down. Ugh, come over a bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. Just make sure it's got plenty of glue on it, and that's it. When it sets, it'll be stuck. Alright, so where else can we go? What about if I rip this little, no, I might leave that little dead piece like that. Let's go over here. What I might actually do with this is to help them stick down and stay down, although that one looks like it's going to stay. If they don't stick where I put them, what I will do is I will come back and put another layer of glue and then sit something a little heavy on the top of them, like maybe this, just so it sort of holds it down into the glue. But I've got a feeling these should stick fairly well anyway. Alright, maybe. Like I said, I don't want a lot, especially seeing as I have the rocks, and I'm not like, and I also don't know where the doll is going to be attached to this yet either, so I don't want to put anywhere it could potentially be in the way. I just want to put a little bit on just to see what it looked like, and yeah, go from there. Ugh. See, that's sticking to my finger now, not the board. Yeah, this one's much too springy, and I want that to stay down as much as possible. So I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to sit that on there like that. No, it's not heavy enough. Like that. There we go. And then on this one, you have a look. What we might do, let's get that in there, and then we'll use this, which is not particularly heavy because it's empty. And we'll come back when they're set up and have a look, and that'll be the end of it. Alright, bye. Okay, so that's it. There's our mossy bits stuck on, so they're ready to go. When I decide where my model is going to go, how I will attach her, I will then place probably more moss and some rocks around. I don't know where I would put them, maybe in with some of the moss perhaps, so it looks like it's growing up through the rocks, or you know, who knows, I don't know. It would depend upon on what goes on here. But that's it. I've got an awesome tutorial coming up for you using plaster of Paris and making a really realistic concrete. But for now, this is something that, I mean, if you've got a Dremel tool, this is really simple to do. Dremel tool and some paint, and that's basically it, and a bag of moss from Spotlight. So yeah, alright. Well, see you for the next one. Bye.